Ambassador Elena Vance stood at the viewing window of Station Meridian 7 and watched ships from 100 different worlds drift past like leaves on a cosmic river. She had been in space for only 3 months, but already Earth felt like a distant memory. The station was humanity's first permanent presence at a major galactic hub, and Elena carried the weight of 8 billion people on her shoulders. She was 42 years old, with gray streaks in her dark hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of difficult years. Before becoming an ambassador, she had been a crisis negotiator. She had talked armed men out of buildings and convinced terrorists to release hostages. The United Nations believed those skills would serve her well among the stars. They had no idea how wrong they were. The Galactic Trade Summit brought representatives from over 200 species to Station Meridian 7 every standard year. For most of these civilizations, humanity was barely worth noticing. Earth had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. In galactic terms, humans were infants stumbling into a room full of ancient giants. Elena turned from the window as her assistant, a young man named David, approached with a tablet in his hands. His face was pale. "Ambassador, we have a problem," he said. "What kind of problem?" "The Korath kind." Elena's stomach tightened. The Korath Dominion was an empire built on conquest and intimidation. For 3,000 years, they had expanded across the galaxy by threatening weaker species into submission. Their reptilian warriors stood over 2 meters tall, with scales like armor and teeth designed for tearing flesh. They had conquered 47 worlds and enslaved billions, and they had been watching humanity with hungry eyes. "What have they done?" Elena asked. David handed her the tablet. On the screen was a news report from a galactic broadcasting network. The headline made her blood run cold. "Korath warship destroys human merchant vessel in disputed territory." Elena read the details with growing horror. The merchant ship Wandering Star had been carrying medical supplies to a colony on the edge of human space. A Korath battlecruiser had intercepted them, demanded they surrender their cargo, and opened fire when the captain refused. All 47 crew members were dead. "When did this happen?" Elena asked. 6 hours ago. The Korath are claiming the ship violated their territorial waters." "That's a lie. Those coordinates are in neutral space. We know that. They know that. They don't care." Elena set down the tablet and took a deep breath. She had dealt with bullies before. The Korath were just bullies with bigger weapons. The sane tactics should work. She was wrong about that too. The main assembly hall of Station Meridian 7 was a vast dome that could hold 10,000 beings. Today it held perhaps half that number. Representatives and observers from across the galaxy gathered for the summit's opening ceremonies. Elena walked to the human delegation's platform, a small raised area near the back of the hall. Humanity's position reflected their status, present but unimportant. The Korath delegation occupied a massive platform near the center of the hall. Their leader, Warlord Thexes, sat on a throne made from the bones of conquered enemies. He was enormous even by Korath standards, with scarred green scales and eyes like yellow fire. Gold chains hung from his neck, each link representing a world he had personally conquered. Elena activated her translation device and stepped forward. "I demand to address the assembly," she said. Her voice carried across the hall through hidden speakers. Silence fell. 10,000 alien eyes turned to look at the small human woman. Who dared to speak without being recognized? The assembly moderator, a tall insectoid being from a neutral world, clicked its mandibles in surprise. "The human ambassador wishes to speak. Is there an objection?" Warlord Thexes laughed. The sound was like rocks grinding together. "Let the prey animal speak," he said. "I wish to hear what noise it makes." Elena ignored the insult and walked to the central speaking platform. She felt very small surrounded by so many massive beings. But she had learned long ago that size meant nothing in negotiation. What mattered was will. 6 hours ago, she began. "A Korath warship destroyed a human merchant vessel in neutral space. 47 of my people are dead. I demand justice." Thexes rose from his bone throne. The chains around his neck rattled as he moved. "Justice? You speak of justice to me?" He stepped down from his platform and approached Elena. Each footstep shook the floor. "Your little ship wandered into Korath territory. We dealt with it as we deal with all trespassers. The coordinates were in neutral space. I have the navigation data. Your data means nothing. The Dominion claims all space that we choose to claim. That is our right as the strong. Elena stood her ground as the massive reptile loomed over her. Strength does not give you the right to murder innocent people. Murder? Vexes seemed genuinely amused. You cannot murder prey. You can only hunt it. He turned to address the assembly. Look at this creature. Soft skin, weak muscles, no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons. Humans are not a civilization. They are food that learned to talk. Laughter rippled through parts of the assembly. Not all species found it funny, but none spoke up in humanity's defense. I have studied your world. Vexes continued. You call yourselves the dominant species of Earth, but you are not even the most dangerous animals on your own planet. Sharks, lions, crocodiles, these creatures would eat you without effort. You survived only by hiding and running and using tricks. He leaned close to Elena, his hot breath washing over her face. There is nowhere to hide out here, little human. There is nowhere to run. Elena did not step back. She did not blink. She met the warlord's yellow eyes and said, "Are you finished?" Vexus's amusement faded into something colder. You do not understand your situation. Let me explain it clearly. Humanity has two choices. You can accept Korath protection and pay tribute, as other weak species have done, or you can be conquered and enslaved. He straightened to his full height. There is no third option. There is always a third option. And what would that be? Elena's voice was steady. You could apologize, pay compensation to the families of those you killed, and leave humanity alone. The laughter this time was louder. Even species who disliked the Korath found the suggestion ridiculous. The Dominion had never apologized for anything in 3,000 years. Vexus's eyes narrowed. You are either very brave or very stupid. I cannot decide which. He turned to his delegation and spoke in the Korath language. One of his officers handed him a communication device. Vexes activated it and displayed a holographic image for the entire assembly to see. It was a human ship, a passenger liner, Elena realized with growing dread. The name painted on the hull read Stellar Dawn. This vessel is currently in what you call neutral space, Vexes said. 3,000 humans on board. Families, children. He smiled, revealing rows of sharp teeth. I could order its destruction right now. One word from me, and 3,000 more of your people die. Would you like to hear that word? The assembly had gone completely silent. Even species who practiced similar intimidation tactics were watching to see what would happen. Elena felt fear trying to crawl up her spine, but she pushed it down. She had talked to men holding guns to hostages' heads. She had looked into the eyes of killers. Vexes was not special. He was just bigger. If you destroy that ship, she said quietly, you will regret it. Regret? The Korath do not know regret. You will learn. Vexes laughed again. But there was uncertainty in it now. Something in Elena's voice had changed. The fear was gone. In its place was something the warlord did not recognize. You threaten me? You, whose species has barely left your own system. You have no fleet. You have no army. What could you possibly do to the Korath Dominion? Elena looked around the assembly hall. She saw representatives from dozens of species who had suffered under Korath aggression. She saw others who lived in fear of becoming the next target. She saw a galaxy that had accepted bullying as normal because no one was willing to stand up. That ended today. I am authorized by the United Earth government to deliver this message, Elena said. Her voice carried to every corner of the vast hall. Release the Stellar Dawn. Pay compensation for the Wandering Star and her crew. Withdraw from all territories you have claimed through force in the last 50 years. These terms are not negotiable. Vexes stared at her in disbelief. Then he began to laugh, a deep, roaring laugh that shook his massive body. You give demands to me? To the Korath Dominion? He spread his arms wide. I accept your challenge, little human. I formally invoke the right of dominance. Our fleets will meet, and when yours is destroyed, your world will burn. The assembly gasped. The right of dominance was an ancient tradition, a formal declaration of limited war. That could only end in one side's complete defeat. Elena did not hesitate. You want fight, she said. Her voice was like ice. Then face annihilation. The words hung in the air. Every being in the assembly hall heard them. Most assumed the human ambassador had simply gone mad. A few wondered if she knew something they did not. Vexes grinned. "I will enjoy this," he said. "When your fleet is ash and your planet is mine, I will keep you as a pet. You have spirit. It will be entertaining to break it." He turned and walked back to his platform. His delegation followed, already celebrating their coming victory. Eleanor remained on the speaking platform for a long moment. She looked up at the thousands of watching eyes and saw pity in most of them. Poor humans. They had no idea what they had just done. But Eleanor knew exactly what she had done. She activated her private communication device and sent a single-coded message to Earth. "Wake the giants." Then she walked back to the human platform, where David was waiting with a face as white as paper. "Ambassador," he whispered, "please tell me we have something. Please tell me that wasn't a bluff." Eleanor looked out at the stars beyond the station's windows. Somewhere out there, humanity's real fleet was waiting. For 50 years, they had hidden. For 50 years, they had prepared. "It wasn't a bluff," she said. "The Korath just made the worst mistake in their history. They're about to find out what humans really are." The galaxy thought it knew humanity. Soft creatures from a small world. Prey animals who had stumbled into the stars by accident. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 3 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a facility that appeared on no map and existed in no official record, Admiral Chen Wei-Lin received the message that changed everything. She was 61 years old, with silver hair cut short and a face that rarely smiled. For 30 years, she had commanded humanity's secret fleet of force so classified that even most world leaders did not know it existed. She had spent her entire adult life preparing for a war she hoped would never come. That hope had just died. "Wake the giants," she read aloud. The words glowed on her command screen like a death sentence. She set down her coffee cup and pressed the intercom button. "All senior officers to the command center. Priority Alpha, within minutes." The vast underground chamber was filled with humanity's highest-ranking military commanders. They stood around a holographic display table that showed the entire galaxy. With Earth as a tiny blue dot near one spiral-armed dot, Admiral Chen looked at their faces. These men and women had dedicated their lives to a secret. Now that secret was about to be revealed. "The Korath have invoked the right of dominance," she said. "Ambassador Vance has accepted the challenge. We are now at war." The room erupted in voices. Some were excited. Others were terrified. Most were simply stunned. "Quiet," Chen said. The single word silenced them all. "I know this is sudden. I know many of you believed this day would never come. But we have prepared for exactly this situation." She touched the display, and the galaxy map zoomed in on Korath space. "Intelligence indicates they are assembling a fleet of approximately 500 warships. They believe this will be more than enough to destroy us." General Morrison, the head of strategic planning, stepped forward. "Admiral, may I remind everyone what we're actually working with here?" "Please do." Morrison touched the display, and new data appeared. "The Korath believe humanity has a defense fleet of roughly 50 ships. That's what we've allowed them to see. Our actual strength is somewhat different." He smiled grimly. "We currently have 12,000 combat-ready vessels, ranging from frigates to super dreadnoughts. Our technology is approximately 200 years ahead of anything the Korath possess." Silence fell over the room. "How is that possible?" asked a younger officer. "We've only been in space for 50 years, Admiral Chen answered. "Because we learned from others' mistakes. When humanity first encountered alien life, it wasn't the peaceful contact our stories imagined. A species called the Vekthari found Earth. They saw us as primitives, useful only as slaves. They began an invasion." She paused, remembering. She had been a child then, hiding in a basement while strange ships burned the skies above. "The Vekthari underestimated us. We fought back with everything we had: nuclear weapons, biological agents, tactics of such desperate violence that the Vekthari had never imagined them. We captured their ships. We reverse-engineered their technology. And when the invasion force was destroyed, we took their knowledge and built upon it." The display showed images from that war: burning cities, crashed alien ships, humans in ragged clothes carrying weapons cobbled together from alien parts. "The Vekthari fled and never returned," Chen continued. But we knew others would come. So we made a choice. We would develop our technology in secret. We would hide our true strength. We would pretend to be weak and harmless while building the most powerful military force in this region of the galaxy. Why hide? Someone asked. Why not show our strength and deter any attackers? Because strength invites challenge. Every empire in this galaxy rose by defeating others. If we had shown what we truly were, we would have become a target for every ambitious warlord in the stars. We chose a different path. We pretended to be prey while becoming predators. Admiral Chen looked around the room. For 50 years, we have watched and waited. We have studied every species, learned their weaknesses, developed countermeasures for their technologies. We have infiltrated their networks and mapped their territories. We know more about the Korath than they know about themselves. She straightened her shoulders. Now the waiting is over. The Korath have forced our hand. They want a war with humanity. Her voice hardened. They have no idea what that means. Meanwhile, on the Korath homeworld, Warlord Thexes was celebrating his coming victory. The capital city of Korath Prime was a monument to conquest. Buildings made from stone quarried by slave labor rose toward blood-red skies. Statues of famous warlords lined the main avenue, each one commemorating a species that had been broken beneath Korath boots. Thexes sat in his war room, surrounded by his top commanders. Holographic displays showed the fleet assembling in orbit. 500 of the Dominion's finest warships, crewed by warriors eager for glory. The humans have 50 ships at most, said War Commander Krell. Thexes is second in command. This will not even be a challenge. Our warriors are disappointed. Thexes waved a clawed hand dismissively. Let them have their sport. When we reach Earth, there will be plenty of opportunities for glory. 8 billion humans to enslave. Cities to burn. A new world to add to our empire. The other powers are watching, Krell noted. Many hope we will fail. They always hope that. They are always disappointed. Thexes touched a display, bringing up images of Earth, blue oceans, green continents, a world rich with resources and filled with soft, weak creatures. Look at this planet. It's beautiful. It will make an excellent addition to my personal holdings. What of the ambassador? The female who challenged you? Thexes smiled, showing his teeth. I will keep my promise. She will be my pet. I will parade her through the streets of every world we have conquered. Let all species see what happens to those who defy the Dominion. The commanders laughed and raised their drinks in celebration. None of them noticed the small device hidden in the wall of listening. Device placed by human intelligence agents years ago. Every word they spoke was being transmitted directly to Earth. Back on Station Meridian 7, Ambassador Elena Vance was dealing with the aftermath of her declaration. Her communication system had not stopped buzzing since she left the assembly hall. Representatives from a dozen species wanted to speak with her. Most wanted to offer condolences. A few wanted to offer advice on how to surrender gracefully. None believed humanity could win. She ignored them all and focused on the message from Admiral Chen. Fleet mobilization is underway. The message read, "We will be in position within 72 hours. The Korath are gathering at the Vareth system. We will meet them there. Prepare for the diplomatic aftermath. It will be significant." Elena allowed herself a small smile. The diplomatic aftermath. That was a gentle way of describing what would happen when the galaxy discovered humanity's true nature. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find an unexpected visitor, Ambassador Krelvax, representative of the Melori Collective. The Melori were an ancient species, among the first to achieve interstellar travel. They looked like tall, elegant birds with feathered bodies and wise eyes. They had watched empires rise and fall for 10,000 years. "May I enter?" Krelvax asked. Elena stepped aside. "Of course. I'm surprised you came. Most of the other ambassadors are keeping their distance. Most of the other ambassadors are fools." The Melori settled onto a perch that Elena kept for avian visitors. "I wish to speak with you privately, away from listening devices." "About what?" Krelvax's feathers rustled thoughtfully. "About the truth. About what humanity really is." Elena kept her face neutral. "I'm not sure what you mean. Please. I am old, and I have seen many things. The Melori have been watching your species since you first sent radio signals into space. We know about the Vecthari invasion. We know what you did to them." The ancient eyes studied Elena carefully. "No species that survived such an attack remains weak. You have been hiding." Elena said nothing. "I will not reveal your secret," Krulithax continued. "In truth, I came to offer a warning. The Koroth are cruel, but they are not stupid. If they realize the truth before you strike, they will call upon their allies. The war could spread. We have planned for that possibility. Have you planned for what comes after?" The Melori leaned forward. "Humanity stands at a crossroads. When you defeat the Koroth, and I believe you will, the galaxy will see what you truly are. They will fear you. Many will wonder if you are simply a new kind of conqueror, worse than the Koroth because you are smarter and more patient." Elena nodded slowly. "We've thought about that too, and we have decided that fear is not enough. We don't want the galaxy to fear us. We want them to respect us. There's a difference." Krulithax made a sound like rustling leaves, the Melori equivalent of a laugh. "Wise words. I hope you remember them when you have Koroth Prime at your mercy." The ambassador rose to leave. "The young often forget their principles when they taste power. I pray humanity will be different." After Krulithax left, Elena stood at her window again, watching the stars. The Melori was right to worry. Power changed people. It changed civilizations. Humanity was about to reveal itself as one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. What would they do with that power? She thought about the Koroth and their empire of fear. She thought about all the species they had enslaved, all the worlds they had burned. Part of her wanted revenge. Part of her wanted to make them pay for every life they had taken. But that was not why humanity had built its secret fleet. They had not spent 50 years preparing for conquest. They had prepared for protection of themselves and others. Who could not protect themselves? When the time came, Elena swore, humanity would remember that. Her communication device buzzed with a new message. This one was from the Koroth delegation. She opened it and found a video file. It showed the prisoners from the Stellar Dawn the passenger liner Thexes had threatened. They were alive, held in a Koroth detention facility. As Elena watched, guards dragged several prisoners forward and forced them to kneel. Vexus's voice came through the speakers. "A gift for you, Ambassador. A reminder of what awaits your species." The guards raised their weapons. Elena's hands shook as she watched. When the video ended, she stood frozen for a long moment. Then she sent a message to Admiral Chen. For words, no mercy, no hesitation. The response came immediately, understood. Fleet departure in 6 hours. The Koroth will learn what annihilation means across the galaxy. In secret shipyards and hidden bases, humanity's true fleet awakened. Massive dreadnoughts powered up their engines. Carrier ships loaded fighters by the thousands. Crews who had trained for decades prepared for real combat. The giants were rising, and the Koroth, celebrating in their ignorance, had no idea what was coming for them. The Vareth system was a place of death. 3 barren planets orbited a dying red star. There was no life here, no resources worth claiming. The Koroth had chosen it as their staging ground precisely because it was worthless. When they destroyed the human fleet, they wanted no witnesses. War Commander Krell stood on the bridge of the flagship Devastation and watched his forces take position. 500 warships spread across the void like a net of iron and fire. Battlecruisers with weapons that could crack planets. Carrier ships housing thousands of fighters. Destroyers fast enough to chase down any fleeing enemy. It was the largest fleet the Dominion had assembled in a century. Sensors detect human ships entering the system, the tactical officer reported. Count is 53 vessels, Krell laughed. The sound echoed across the bridge. 53. They didn't even bring their entire fleet. Perhaps they know resistance is useless. Another officer suggested, perhaps. Or perhaps they are simply fools. Krell activated the communication system. All ships, prepare for engagement. Remember, Warlord Thexes wants prisoners. Try not to destroy them all too quickly. The Koroth fleet began to move. Engines burning bright against the darkness. 500 ships against 50. The outcome was not in doubt. Then the tactical officer's voice changed. "Commander, I'm reading more contacts, more humans." "Yes, 50 more ships just appeared. And Another 100 behind them. Krell frowned. 200 ships. Still not enough. Where are they coming from? I don't know, Commander. They're just appearing, like they were hidden somehow. The officer's voice rose in pitch. 300 contacts now. 400. 500. The bridge fell silent. That's impossible, Krell said. Human intelligence indicated they only have 50 ships in their entire fleet. Commander, contact count is now at 1,000. Still rising. Krell stared at the tactical display. Red dots representing human ships were spreading across the screen like a virus. Each one was larger than he expected, and they moved with a precision that seemed almost mechanical. 1,500 contacts. 2,000. The officer's voice cracked. Commander, they're still coming. On the bridge of the human flagship Retribution. Admiral Chen Wei-Lin watched her fleet pour into the Verith system. 12,000 ships, the product of 50 years of secret construction, emerged from hidden positions throughout the sector. Each one was a masterpiece of engineering. The super dreadnoughts were 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. The cruisers carried experimental shield technology that could shrug off anything the Korath possessed. Even the smallest frigates were faster and deadlier than anything the Dominion had ever faced. All fleet elements report ready, her tactical officer said. The Korath have stopped their advance. I imagine they're confused, Chen said. Open a channel to their flagship. A moment later, War Commander Krell's face appeared on the screen. His yellow eyes were wide, and his scales had paled from green to a sickly gray. This is Admiral Chen Wei-Lin of the United Earth Defense Force, she said calmly. I am offering you one chance to surrender. Withdraw your fleet, release all human prisoners, and submit to terms. If you refuse, you will be destroyed. Krell's mouth moved, but no sound came out. Finally he managed. Where did you? How is this possible? You made assumptions about humanity. You were wrong. Chen leaned forward. I will give you 60 seconds to respond. Choose wisely. The communication ended. Chen turned to her officers. Prepare all weapons. Target their command ships first, Admiral, said Captain Singh, her second in command. They're not going to surrender. They can't. Korath warriors would rather die than face the shame of retreat. I know. But we have to offer the choice. We're not like them. The 60 seconds passed in silence. No response came from the Korath fleet. Time's up, Chen said. All ships, weapons free. Execute attack pattern Omega. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The human fleet moved with perfect coordination, each ship knowing exactly where to be and when. The Korath, still recovering from their shock, responded too slowly. By the time they opened fire, human shields were already absorbing their attacks. Then the humans fired back. Beams of energy, unlike anything the Korath had ever seen, sliced through their ships, like hot metal through ice. Missiles that should have been easy to intercept instead vanished, and reappeared inside Korath hulls, bypassing shields entirely. Human fighters, smaller and faster than anything in the Dominion's arsenal, swarmed between the larger vessels and targeted weak points with surgical precision. In the first hour, the Korath lost 300 ships. On the devastation, War Commander Krell watched his fleet die and felt something he had never experienced before. Absolute terror. Pull back, he screamed. All ships, retreat to the secondary rally point. Commander, the humans are blocking our escape routes. Their ships are everywhere. The tactical display told the story. The human fleet had surrounded them completely. There was nowhere to run. Another impact rocked the flagship. Damage reports flooded in, shield generators failing, weapons banks destroyed, hull breaches on multiple decks. The devastation was dying, and there was nothing Krell could do to save her. Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship. Put it through. Admiral Chen's face appeared again. She looked exactly as calm as before, as if she were discussing the weather rather than conducting a slaughter. War Commander, she said, your fleet is destroyed. You have lost. I am again offering you the chance to surrender. This is the last time I will make this offer. Krell wanted to refuse. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to fight to the death, to take as many humans with him as possible. That was the Korath way. That was how legends were made. But legends didn't matter to dead warriors. "What are your terms?" he asked. "Unconditional surrender. You and your surviving ships will accompany us to Koroth Prime, where we will discuss the future of your species with your government. Any attempt to resist will result in the complete destruction of all remaining Koroth vessels. And if I refuse, then you die here, and we go to Koroth Prime anyway. The only difference is whether you live to see what happens next." Krell closed his eyes. He thought of his homeworld, defenseless now that the fleet was gone. He thought of the billions of Koroth civilians who would suffer if he chose pride over pragmatism. "I surrender," he said. The words felt like broken glass in his throat. "A wise choice. Power down your weapons and await further instructions." The channel closed. Krell slumped in his command chair and stared at the burning remains of his fleet. 200 ships had survived out of 500. The rest were debris floating in the void. The Koroth Dominion had ruled through fear for 3,000 years. In 1 hour, that fear had been turned against them. Across the galaxy, species watched the battle recordings in stunned silence. The images spread through every network, every broadcast system, every communication channel. What they showed was impossible, a species everyone had dismissed as weak and harmless, systematically dismantling the most feared military in the known galaxy. On Station Meridian 7, Ambassador Elena Vance stood before a gathering of confused and frightened representatives. They looked at her differently now. The pity in their eyes had been replaced by something else, fear. "I know you have questions," she said. "I will answer what I can. Yes, humanity has been hiding our true capabilities. Yes, we have possessed this power for decades. No, we never intended to use it for conquest. Then why reveal it now?" asked the Melori ambassador. "Because the Koroth forced our hand. They attacked our people. They murdered our civilians. They threatened our world." Elena's voice hardened. "We did not start this war, but we will finish it." "What happens now?" asked another representative. "Now we go to Koroth Prime. We will meet with their government and discuss terms for ending the conflict. There will be changes. The Dominion's days of conquest and slavery are over." "Will you destroy them?" someone asked. "Enslave them as they have enslaved others?" Elena shook her head. "No, that would make us no better than they are. Humanity did not build this fleet to become tyrants. We built it to protect ourselves and those who cannot protect themselves." She looked around the room, meeting as many eyes as she could. "The galaxy is about to change. We hope that change will be for the better, but that depends on the choices we all make in the days to come." She left the assembly hall and walked to her ship. A message from Admiral Chen was waiting. "Fleet is en route to Koroth Prime, ETA 12 hours. The government there has been informed of their fleet's defeat. They're scared." "Good," Elena replied. "They should be. But remind our people we're not here for revenge. We're here for justice. Some of our soldiers lost friends in the attacks. Some want blood, I know. But blood is easy. Building something better is hard. That's why we're humanity, not the Koroth." There was a long pause before Chen responded. "Understood. We'll do it your way, Ambassador. But I hope you're right about this." "So do I," Elena said quietly. "So do I." The human fleet gathered around the conquered Koroth vessels and began the journey to Koroth Prime. Behind them, the Vareth system was littered with wreckage, the remains of 500 warships, and 3,000 years of unchallenged supremacy. The galaxy's greatest empire had fallen in a single day. Now came the harder part, deciding what to build in its place. Koroth Prime had never seen anything like this. For 3,000 years, the skies above the capital had been filled with Koroth warship, symbols of power and conquest. Now those skies were filled with human vessels, 12,000 of them, their sleek hulls blocking out the light of the red sun. In the streets below, Koroth civilians looked up and felt something their ancestors had never known: helplessness. They were the conquerors, the rulers, the masters of 47 worlds. They had never been the conquered. Until now, Grand Chancellor. Vexy's 4 warlords became chancellors. When their worlds faced destruction, stood in the ancient Hall of Dominance and watched the human ships through a tall window. His golden chains of conquest felt heavy on his neck. Each link represented a victory. Now they felt like weights dragging him toward a dark ocean. His advisors clustered around him, arguing in harsh whispers. Some demanded resistance. Others urged immediate surrender. A few had already fled, taking their families to distant colonies in hope of escaping human justice. Their landing troops announced a military aid. His voice trembled. How many? Thousands. Perhaps tens of thousands. They're establishing perimeters around government buildings and military installations. Vexes turned from the window. Any attacks? Any violence? No, Chancellor. They're just taking positions. They haven't fired a single shot since entering orbit. That was almost worse than bombardment. Bombardment Vexes could understand. Bombardment was what the Koroth would have done. This patient, methodical occupation was something else entirely, something that made his scales itch with unease. The human ambassador requests a meeting, another aide said. She's waiting at the main gates with an honor guard. An honor guard? They bring honor guards to meetings with those they've defeated? It appears so, Chancellor. 5 years had passed since the fall of the Dominion. Koroth Prime looked different now. The bones had been removed from the Hall of Dominance, which had been renamed the Hall of Unity. The statues of conquering warlords had been replaced with monuments to peace, and in the streets where soldiers once marched toward war, children now played together. Koroth young and the offspring of a dozen other species, learning side by side. Ambassador Elena Vance, now High Ambassador, head of the Galactic Reconciliation Council, walked through the capital city with a Koroth escort. Her guide was a young officer named Rexel, who had been a cadet when the war ended and had grown up in the New Order. The reconstruction of the outer districts is nearly complete, Rexel said, gesturing toward new buildings rising on the horizon. The refugee settlement program has housed over 2 million former slaves. Most have chosen to stay. On Koroth Prime, Elena was surprised. Their former master's world? Times have changed, Ambassador. Many Koroth have publicly apologized for their ancestors' crimes. Some have formed partnerships with the species they once oppressed. It's not perfect, there are still tensions, but progress is being made. Elena nodded slowly. This was more than she had dared hope for 5 years ago. And the resistance movements, the die-hard imperialists, scattered and weakened. Most Koroth have embraced the reforms, especially the younger generation. They see the old ways as shameful, not glorious. Rexel's voice carried a note of pride. We're building something new, something better. They stopped before a large building that had once been a military academy. Now it was a school for all species, a place where young minds learned cooperation instead of conquest. Would you like to see the memorial? Rexel asked. Elena followed him inside. The central hall had been transformed into a museum of the old regime's crimes. Holographic displays showed the worlds conquered, the species enslaved, the lives destroyed. It was not a comfortable place. It was not meant to be. At the center of the hall stood a simple stone monument. Names were carved into its surface, the names of every person killed by the Koroth Dominion, whose identity could be recovered. The list stretched from floor to ceiling and continued on display screens round the walls. We added a new section last month, Rexel said quietly. The crew of the Wandering Star, the passengers of the Stellar Dawn, their names are here now, along with all the others. Elena found them near the bottom of the physical monument. 47 names from the Wandering Star, 3,000 from the Stellar Dawn. Each one a life ended too soon. There are over 40 million names in total, Rexel continued. The research team is still finding more. We may never have a complete count. No, you probably won't. Elena touched the cool stone. But this is important. Remembering is important. That's what we're taught now. The old regime taught us to forget our crimes, to see conquered peoples as beneath notice. Now we learn every name we can. We look at what we did without turning away. Rexel's yellow eyes were solemn. It's painful, but pain can be instructive. They left the memorial and continued to the Hall of Unity, where the Galactic Reconciliation Council was holding its annual summit. Representatives from over 300 species had gathered, more than had ever met in peace before. Elena took her place at the speaking platform and looked out at the vast assembly. She saw faces she had known for years and faces she had never seen before. She saw former enemies becoming cautious allies. She saw the beginning of something unprecedented. 5 years ago, she began. Humanity revealed itself to the galaxy. We showed the strength we had hidden for 50 years. We defeated the Korath Dominion in a single day. And then we did something no one expected. We chose mercy. The hall was silent, every being listening intently. When we stood over Korath Prime with the power to destroy it, we chose instead to build. When we could have enslaved those who had enslaved others, we chose to free everyone. When we could have ruled through fear, we chose to lead through example. She paused. It wasn't easy. Many humans wanted revenge. Many still do. But we decided that the cycle of conquest had to end somewhere, and it would end with us. She gestured to the Korath delegation, seated in a place of honor. The Korath Republic, not the Dominion. The Republic has been our partner in this transformation. They have faced their crimes honestly. They have released their slaves. They have paid reparations to the species they wronged. And they have begun the hard work of becoming something other than conquerors. The Korath representative rose and bowed, a gesture of respect that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. Today I am proud to announce the next step in this process, Elena continued. The Korath Defense Force, rebuilt under new principles and new leadership, will join the Galactic Protection Initiative. Their warriors will serve alongside soldiers from 100 other species to keep the peace. The same strength that once terrorized the galaxy will now defend it. Murmurs spread through the assembly. This was unprecedented. The Korath as protectors rather than predators, it challenged everything the galaxy had believed. For 3,000 years, Elena waited for quiet. I know this is difficult to accept. I know many of you have suffered at Korath hands. But holding onto hatred is easy. Building trust is hard. We're asking you to do the hard thing. She looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as she could. Humanity has been called many things since we revealed ourselves. Conquerors, saviors, monsters, angels. The truth is simpler than any of those labels. We're just people who were given great power and tried to use it responsibly. We made mistakes along the way. We'll make more. But our goal has never changed. A galaxy where strength is used to protect, not to exploit. She took a deep breath. That goal is closer today than it has ever been. Not because of humanity alone, but because of everyone in this room. Every species that chose cooperation over conflict. Every former enemy that became a friend. Every small act of kindness between beings who were taught to hate each other. Her voice softened. When I challenged the Korath Dominion 5 years ago, I said they would face annihilation if they chose to fight. I meant those words. But annihilation doesn't only mean destruction. It can also mean transformation, the annihilation of what was, to make room for what could be. She gestured to the Korath delegation again. The Dominion was annihilated. In its place rose a republic. Fear was annihilated. In its place grew respect. Hatred was annihilated. In its place bloomed understanding. She smiled. That is the kind of annihilation humanity believes in. The end of what is wrong, so that what is right can flourish. The assembly rose in applause, not all of them, not yet, but more than ever before. Korath and human, Melori and Vekthari, dozens of species who had been enemies and were learning to be friends. Later, as the summit concluded and delegates mingled, Elena found herself standing beside the Korath representative. His name was Thrun, and his grandfather had died in the war 5 years ago on the Korath side. My grandfather spoke of you before he died, Thrun said. He said you were the most dangerous human he had ever met. I'm sorry for your loss, don't be. He died in battle, which was all he ever wanted. But he also said something else. Thrun looked out the window at the transformed city. He said that you understood something the Korath had forgotten, that true strength is not about what you can destroy, but about what you can build. I'm not sure I understood that 5 years ago. I think I was learning it along with everyone else, perhaps. But you chose to learn. That's what matters. Thrun turned to face her. My generation will not forget what humanity did for us. You could have destroyed us. Instead, you showed us how to be better. That is a debt we can never repay. Elena shook her head. It's not a debt. It's a partnership. We're all building this future together. She looked out at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, human ships patrolled alongside Korath vessels, protecting worlds that had once been targets of conquest. Somewhere out there, children were growing up free because of choices made in this hall and others like it. You know what I remember most about the day I challenged Warlord Xyz? She asked. Tell me, The silence. When I told him to face Annihilation, the entire assembly went quiet. They thought I was mad. They thought humanity was doomed. She smiled faintly. They had no idea what was coming. None of us did, really. We knew we could win the war. We didn't know if we could win the peace. And now, Elena watched a group of young Korath walking past with students from other species, laughing together at some shared joke. Now I think we have a chance. A real chance. Not for perfection, the galaxy will never be perfect, but for something better than what came before. She turned back to Thrun. That's all any of us can hope for, isn't it? Something better than before? The young Korath nodded slowly. My grandfather's generation believed strength was the only thing that mattered. My father's generation learned that strength alone was not enough. My generation is learning that strength can be a gift, given to protect rather than taken to dominate. And what will your children learn?